Hey, it's the Chubby Bartender Podcast with your host, Jason Gillum and Chad Reynolds. With a special guest each week. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Get up. All right. Hey, we're back.
Hey, we're back and better than we've been in a long time.
Well, you've been on vacation all week.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Not vacation.
No, actually, I'm actually been working this week, which is kind of strange.
Yeah.
But hey, we got some people to thank.
Who do you want to kick off? Look at us, but well, you're on the Speedway.
Yeah, Speedway. Yeah.
I went and got my boy Munn.
You ever use the app? Yeah. Let's talk about the Munn family serving our local area.
Jackson Wellston O'Kill and MacArthur, Brad and Sarah Munn. Hey, I've used my deal of the day. That's just what I had here. So get the app. We're pulling for spot number 5.
Yep, there we go. We want number 5.
Yeah, Brad and Sarah, thank you.
Smash that like button.
Yeah. Who else you got?
Hey, let's talk about Scott Massey and Geiger Brothers.
I saw him tonight. Boxed with him tonight.
Oh.
There's a reason that Geiger Brothers is so successful. It's because Scott Massey works so hard.
And can box.
And he can box.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Well, it doesn't surprise me. He's not only an engineer.
He's
one
a
hell of a boxer.
That's right. Look him up, GeigerBrothers.com, or give him a call, 740-286-0800.
Hey, Gillum Insurance.
Gillum Insurance. Hey, the guaranteed issue whole life was hot this week.
Nice.
So
nice.
That's I like this. If you got a loved one that you're looking for insurance for that you think, they're not healthy enough, give me a call. We'll get them insured as long as they're under age 80. So 740-395-0357.
And the last, you were just talking about seeing Massey over there. Let's talk about AP Prep.
AP Prep.
Earning the day.
We earned it today.
I bet you did.
Man, look those guys up. If you're interested in AP Prep, look them up at apprep.info. Get yourself registered. They will give you an assessment course for your child. And then if you want to do the boxing, it's Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursday nights, 5:30 to 6:30, and Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 4:50 and 6. So look them up, apprep.info.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, man.
Now, hey, we've got our own version of the Dos Equis man.
Yeah, the most interesting
man in the world.
Yeah,
Mr. Curtis Jayjohn. Welcome.
Yes.
Cheers with our coffees and Diet Pepsi.
Yes.
So we don't know where this thing could go, but we know that you are. Let's see. You are a Bondo instructor. You have. You were on a national championship Frisbee golf team.
Well, it wasn't a team. It was all individual.
All individual, yeah, okay. Right. So you've done that. You've been overseas protecting world leaders and offering protection. Mm-hmm. You've killed everything.
Just an ant.
I'm saying with a recurve bow.
Oh, well, I killed a frog once.
Yeah. But you used to shoot aspirin out of the air with a recurve bow. Yeah. Have you killed a rhinoceros?
No.
You killed an ox with it?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. I saw lots of animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, your typical deer and turkeys. And I did go to Africa and New Zealand and Alaska and Canada and, and hunted all those things. But the natives made me quit shooting their friends because I guess that's illegal. I mean, I think the guy had a sign on the back.
So I'm gonna let Chad. I mean, another thing that we're gonna have to bang on sometime tonight is Eddie Hughes. We're gonna. I know that you trained him.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have to bang on him a little bit, but we'll save that. We're gonna make him watch this whole thing, and that way he never knows where it's going to be.
Well, I don't want to make him too mad at me.
Oh no!
And I'm guessing by the bio sheet, I mean, this is probably going to be a 2 to 3 part episode.
It probably is.
Probably going to have to bring this.
Where
guy
you want to
back.
go first?
Well, I mean, do we want to start with athletics or do we want to start with
Bondo?
Yeah, I'm very curious about Bondo. I mean, as a guy that knows absolutely
Let's do Bondo.
Nothing about it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Bondo is a martial arts system that originated in the Far East and came out of China, like all systems in martial arts did. But Bondo is from Burma or Mandalay today. The Grand Master in the United States was Dr. Yu Mung Ji. He was a professor at a high university.
Grand Master of the United States. What's that?
Well, it's just he's a guy that was a Grand Master when Chuck Norris was getting his black belt. I mean, he refereed a lot, had a lot to do with the development of fighting in America and sports fighting along with those guys. And he's world renowned. So he came to America in 1950. Yeah, he came to America and worked at the American University in Washington, D.C., started training guys there back in the 60s. When martial arts, nobody knew who Bruce Lee was, back then.
Right.
And G was of at least as high or higher caliber as he was. But you'd have to have known them both to realize that. I mean, the man is... he's a real good argument for alien DNA. He speaks 6-7 languages, writes in 5 or 6 languages.
She's still alive.
Still living. He's pushing 86 right now.
So how does Curtis find Dr. Lee?
Or G.
I'm sorry.
Well, it was a process. I started training martial arts as a kid with my father, who was a black belt in judo. He earned that in Japan in 1955 or 54 during the Korean War, and came to Wellston, which was his hometown, from Dayton when I was a kid, and got introduced to a guy from Wellston that taught Goju-Ryu karate, which is an Okinawan Japanese system, and that was Chuck Fink. Anybody knows a whole lot about anything to do with fighting, training.
Steve's dad.
Yeah, absolutely. And just
good people.
Great man, great athlete, great instructor. And he introduced me to karate, and I trained with him on and off for 20 years.
So did he do you say Goju?
Goju. Go meaning hard, Ju meaning soft. So it's a soft, hard system, where some other systems are hard all the time. Kung Fu's soft system. So you could talk for days about systems, techniques, and ideologies, but Bondo is basically a hybrid system of all systems. So it incorporated everything that was useful, kind of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu became great because they utilized other things from without the system. So that's one of the things that made them so much better than standard Jiu-Jitsu.
So is Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu two different things?
Well, they're essentially the same, but the Gracies had a whole different curriculum. They developed and transformed. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is different than Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. The old man from the old man Gracie, he came to High University in the 70s and stayed with G.
Hoyce?
No, Hoyce's father.
Okay.
And he trained, and there was a wrestler over there that was on the Olympic team, and I don't know his name, but he wanted to study this wrestler, so he'd come for 30 days and lived with G and studied him, and
Really?
So yeah,
that's pretty.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's amazing, right here in Athens.
Yeah, G was on the Olympic boxing team for Burma. He's just. It's hard to describe. He's very magnetic, and one of the chief instructors that he trained was a guy named Sam Jones over in Gloucester.
Yeah.
So Sam Jones is a whole other story that is similar to Dr. G's. Just an amazing individual, human being, just magnetic. It's like moth to a flame. You get around those guys, and they just like draw you in. You can't. They mesmerize you. Yeah. And then Del Miner from Athens, and then Chet Bovington was Chuck Fink's teacher over in Wheeling, West Virginia. So as I progressed through the ranks, I had to go to other schools to get more knowledge. In Goju-Ryu, and Goju and Bondo kind of intermixed.
Okay.
Because G trained in Japan. With the Grandmaster Gogan Yamaguchi and Goju. So he studied many different systems.
So to get a belt or black belt in Bondo, do you have to have training in other systems as well?
Well, a lot of people did. And like I myself, I had trained 20 years in other systems.
Okay.
And 2 years in Bondo, I learned more than I did in 20 years in other systems under legitimate grandmasters
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, like I said, you can't begin to imagine. You know, everything he does or did when he was still practicing was so much far superior than anything else you could possibly do. I mean, I'm not even in the mid-level of the masters, you know, in Bondo. I mean, my rank is, but my skill set isn't.
Okay.
What I mean, there's some really amazing people out there. It's like good compared to who?
Yeah.
You know, then
Yeah.
it's like comparing, you know, me in high school to Bo Jackson. You know, just I don't think so. You know, you know.
Yeah. Right.
I got no shoe contract.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
So anyway, Bondo's a very vicious, rough, combative system, and you know we kick the legs, and you know
It's
a lot
life
of
or death.
well, if you're fighting the combat system, but you know Muay Thai, everybody associates Muay Thai, kickboxing, and Burmese Lithway is the same as Muay Thai. So Burma and Thailand set like Ohio and Michigan do.
Okay.
And their Muay Thai competitions are like Ohio State football in Michigan.
Okay.
So it's a national pride sort of thing. So they'd compete and try to, you know, every year bring a championship home to their nation, you know, the greatest fighters in the world. So Bondo has many different assets. It has the old systems like Muay Thai, Lithway's kickboxing. Then you have the stick systems, which is fighting with different types of sticks.
Weapons.
Then weapons. Then you got edged weapons. You've got grappling, which is no-gi grappling, which we call them the bond. And
So shirtless.
shirtless, shirtless, gi-less. That's called the bond, and it's like jiu-jitsu, only it's no gi. And then you have 12 animal systems in Bondo, and their systems within themselves. And each of those systems have sticks and weapons. And so this thing goes on. You know, no one man can contain Bondo. Now, Dr. G, I mean, he wouldn't tell you this, but he's got to have a photographic memory because it's hard for any of us to remember what he taught us 20 years ago, let alone 2,000 other techniques and forms.
Is there that many techniques and forms in this stuff?
It can, yeah. But the important thing to remember about martial arts is it's not how many years you train. It's not how many kata you know. It's about mastering 5 techniques. You know, I mean, I like Eddie Hughes. You said, you know, talk about Eddie Hughes. You know, Eddie trained with me for a short time when he was in college, as did a lot of people at University of Rye Grand when I taught there. And I taught him basic kickboxing, you know, and it's like you said, you went and you trained in the boxing, you know, you learn a left, you learn a right, a hook, an uppercut. You know, that's your basic boxing hand. And in kickboxing, you've got that along with a front kick, a shin bone kick to the leg, you know, a round kick. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 kicks, and then you got elbows. And if you master just 9 techniques, you can fight anybody, anywhere, anytime in the world, and give them hell.
Yeah.
You know, coincidentally, I'll tell you this little story about a guy in Gloucester. The guy was a green belt, and this guy was training for the World Kickboxing Championship, and he's fighting a Canadian. So he wanted to come and train in Bondo because we kickbox, you know, full contact, and a lot of people didn't do that back then. So that was just when the PKA, Professional Karate Association, was becoming where they were doing full contact matches in the early 70s. And this were Chuck Norris, Bill Wallace, Joe shoot, I can't think of his name off the top of my head here. I'll get it though, but he was a heavyweight champion. And so he came and he wanted to train with G's black belts, and G was like, no, you'll fight the white belt first, you know. You know, you don't know what you don't know, you know. So he ended up fighting this guy from Gloucester, little dude, you know. And the guy knocked him down 3 times in the first round.
Yeah.
You know, he was fighting for the world championship. So he couldn't even beat a Bondo green belt in kickboxing. Uh-huh. And this is a true story. I'm not making any of this up. He goes to Canada and he fights that guy 12 rounds, split decision. And he loses the decision. But little old corner of southern Ohio down here, coal mining town, Gloucester, Ohio, Sam Jones.
Yeah.
And he's got a green belt. And the guy just beat him just merciful. Yeah.
What year would that have been?
70s, 4 or 5. Joe Louis is the name I was thinking of. You got Joe Louis, the boxer, but you also had Joe Louis from Tennessee, who was a full contact. He was actually going to be in the movie that made Chuck Norris famous, where Bruce Lee killed Chuck Norris at the end. It was supposed to be Joe Louis. And Joe's big, strong guy, and Chuck's much smaller man. There was something that happened that didn't follow through. But
so what's Chuck Norris? What's he's into Taekwondo?
He's into Chuck Norris is into. He was a Taekwondo fighter, world champion, and
he was world champion.
Oh yeah, and then he went down to Brazil and met the Gracies, took some of his guys down there to fight, and then Chuck went to fight one of the Gracies, and the Gracies tied him into a pretzel and choked him out in about 30 seconds, and that was the end of Chuck Norris's ego. He lost all ego after that. So there's different styles of fighting that benefit you in different situations. We were talking about actual fighting in the street or in combat, and grappling's great. Everything usually goes to the ground. And if it's one-on-one, jiu-jitsu,
tell Chad
any type.
This opened up, a whole new idea. Let's tell you about it.
So, not to insult anybody, but I'm talking about combat situations, not necessarily the effectiveness of the sport.
Yes.
Because Brazilian jiu-jitsu and karate, anybody anybody can be hurt, anybody can be knocked out, anybody can be choked out. You make one tactical error and it could be the end of your day. But I grew up in Wellston back in the 70s and in the 60s, and there were a lot of bars, a lot of bar fighting, and a lot of guys go outside to fight one guy and end up fighting 6. So let's say you're a jiu-jitsu master, world champion. Let's say you're Chuck Norris, and you go to Janetta's in Wellston and go out and fight some redneck, and you got him on the ground, and you're pounding him, and the next thing you know, you got a size 10 steel-toe boot in your nose.
Just because you're on the ground.
Just because you're on the ground and you're with my buddy. That's my buddy. So, that doesn't work too well. You don't want to be on the ground in a street fight.
In a cage, just you and him.
Yeah, that's different. You have to worry about your back.
Yeah.
Watch your six. The military and police officers talk about watch your six all the time. So in reality, people they learn these skill sets and they're very, very good. But you don't want to be on the ground in a real bar fight because of the fact that somebody else might get involved, even if it's just two guys. Right. As soon as two guys go to the ground in a bar, their girlfriends are right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Don't you hurt? I've had guys knock the crap out of girls. I've stepped in, and ended the situation. Don't hurt him. I'm like, what? He just knocked you. He just threw you through a windshield. What's going on? So the realities of combat versus sport martial arts, they're on two completely different spectrums.
Yeah.
So
are there certain martial arts that may lend themselves more to that? Like for instance, I know like the Israeli Krav Maga. Talk about it, like that seemed to be a system that's almost designed for that type of environment, right? Or not?
Krav Maga, yes. Krav Maga is a no thrills, just much like Bondo. A lot of Krav Maga is exactly like the Bondo bull and the Bondo boar systems.
Okay.
Very strong attack systems. No retreat, just attack, and disengage. Yeah. So in combat versus sport, you want to, attack the guy because, most predators, bad guys, they see you as a victim. So they don't know whether you have training or not. Just like a CCW, the guy didn't know if you're carrying a knife or if you're carrying a .45 in your back pocket. So allowing people to have the right to carry concealed weapons has leveled the playing field quite a bit. So you don't have as much violence, say, in areas where, people are pro-gun. So same thing with Krav Maga. If somebody jumps on you and you get resistance, and a guy gets hit in the nose or kicked in the groin or foot stomped or hit with a purse, he's stunned, and then you can disengage, put distance between you and the bad guy. And that's the idea of self-defense. It's not to sit there and try and
duke it out.
Like MMA cage match.
Yeah.
The longer you're engaged in a fight, the more likely it is you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You might slip.
Yeah.
You might slip on the grass, hit your head off the concrete, and and next thing you know, he's got your purse, your wife, your kid, your car.
Yeah.
In your life.
And your life if he wants it. Yeah. So that's it.
Okay. So another thing you touched on there, when you were discussing the gentleman that came to train there in Gloucester, you talk about the different belts, and if somebody's a black belt in one particular martial art, how big of a difference does that make?
None at all.
That's what I mean. Like,
none at all.
So a belt really.
A belt. Yeah, it's good for holding your pants up.
Yeah,
a lot of times,
that's what I've heard before.
A lot of times, training with Dr. G, we wear a little white rope, like a monk.
Okay.
And back in the ancient days of martial arts, and the 1500s, 1700s, and Fuzhou, China, and Okinawa, Japan, these guys would just, they would wear their gi. Okay, and the idea of a white gi or a black gi is a funeral dress.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that. The black gi was used by like ninja warriors, whatever. The reason that is it doesn't show blood. If you got blood on black gi, you're not going to see it.
Right.
You got blood on white gi, you're going to see it. Enemy's going to know you're hurt or think you are, and it can change. It can change.
Did they used to wear gis like?
Well, that was the
standard dress.
The standard dress back then. So they'd have a belt. And they'd train out in the dirt and the sand, and
that's
they'd get dirty.
You wore.
And you'd wear that belt, and eventually it'd get dark, and eventually it'd start to rust and mold, and it was black.
Right.
And that meant that the guy had been training
long enough
that his belt had turned black.
Okay.
So the ranking system came many years down the road, hundreds of years.
Is that like an Americanized thing?
No, it started in Japan.
Okay.
One of the things about Japanese martial arts, and something that many people just don't understand, is with the greatest amount of respect, talk about elitism. Okay, just like Banzai World War II, elitism, Japanese elitism, and the theory that they were a superior race. So, as a martial arts practitioner in Japanese systems, you could only go so far. Like Joe Louis could only be like a 6th degree in karate over there because he was American. He was a white guy. Okay. One of the most fierce combative martial artists that ever lived was Masayama. And Masayama was a big man like yourself, and he was a Korean. And he would kill a bull. He would knock a bull out, break its neck, and chop its horn off with his...
Wow.
And this is documented, and it's even on film. And this guy was like superhuman, and he could only be promoted to 6th degree. So he was never made the Grand Master of Goju-Ryu.
So he started Japanese.
Because he wasn't Japanese. So he started his own system called Kyoshiken.
Okay.
And he made himself a 9th degree. Out of respect for Gogen Yamaguchi, the Grandmaster, which was a 10th in karate. Okay. Bondo only has nine levels.
Okay.
We call them levels.
Okay.
So a first level in a Bondo system is the equivalent of a 2nd degree. So a 9th level in Bondo is the same as a 10th degree in karate. So karate meaning, kara means emptiness in Japanese, and te means hand. So, karate is without weapons. So when you see a guy with a sai or a bow staff or a sword, that's not karate. It's something completely different. Kendo.
Nunchucks.
Yeah, it's completely, you went out of the realm of karate, but it is taught and practiced because it's a martial art, martial meaning war.
Okay. Martial means war.
Yeah, martial art.
So mixed war arts is basically
exactly. Yeah.
So how in like Bondo, for instance, do you advance one belt to the next? Is that just up to your instructor and what he sees, or are there
it's usually a very painful.
Okay.
Pain is a great teacher.
Yeah.
Yes. So Bondo generally, if you have an organized class and you're able to train, and you're of organized or of standard skill set, meaning you're not an elite athlete, it's 2 years to green belt, 2 more years to brown, and another year, so 5 years to black belt. Of continuous study.
Are you capable of deeming people these belts?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
a legitimate Goju master, high master, and Bondo high master. But I've been training 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, Curt, so somebody's starting the process.
Yeah.
Okay, like in that 2 years, before they become a green belt, how much training are they doing? Like, how often are they doing this?
I personally only teach my students once per week because here in Appalachia, you just don't have the gene pool of students. Like over in Athens at the High University, I've got a friend over there, Pat Gretzky. He has like a transmission shop over in Albany. Great guy, amazing teacher. And he was one of Dale Miner's students. And he's got like 40 kids. He trains young kids. I mean, you ought to see some of these 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds put boxing gloves on, what they can do. It's scary. It's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be 9 years old.
Yeah.
Have to go to kindergarten or what.
Take that kid's
Third grade, that girl just kicked my butt. And so a lot more people. So, the size of the town makes a big difference. For some reason, it's an Appalachia, coal mining, Irish thing. People in Appalachia tend to be a little bit tougher. Harder, I think. I've trained hundreds of people, and without fail, just about everybody I've taken to a tournament has done very well or placed or medaled. So just recently, one of my students who I've trained about 2 years, he just took himself and his father, because I couldn't get out of town, and Brady Williams from Wellston. He won the Greenbelt National Freestyle Championship in Wheeling Saturday. So congrats to him. Yeah. And he hadn't yet been promoted to Greenbelt, but he has now, of course. He beat everybody there. It's a pretty good chance.
Do you bring that in as like a ceremony at class?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to buy him a pizza or a sub or something.
It seems to be picking up. Like, I mean, I think MMA, UFC, that type of, now, you're seeing. I mean, you're seeing a lot more people paying attention, knowing the sport a little bit,
right?
And it's a long time, kind of understand. Okay, so they're on the ground. That's jiu-jitsu. So they're, they're throwing elbows. That's Muay Thai.
It's one of the things that came out of the MMA fights. Was it really exposed the weaknesses of other systems. The Gracies just absolutely dominated, and that's what set that on fire.
Oh, he fought Dan Severn.
Yeah.
And I mean, Dan Severn was just...
Yeah, he's the beast. The beast.
Yeah.
So a lot of people got turned on to that. That's the thing I want to learn,
Yeah.
And then now you see it's called MMA, mixed martial arts. Well, that's Bondo. Bondo was mixed martial arts 300 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what Bondo was. They used to bring in guys from all over the world, and a guy would say, okay, what's your skill set? And he'd say, well, I can fight 9 guys with these sticks, and so they'd put 9 guys out there and see if he could fight them,
Yeah.
And if the 9 guys kick the crap out of the guy, it's like, we don't need that.
Yeah. That one's out. Yeah.
Another guy comes in and says, I can crack a coconut with my bare hand. And you're like, well, let's see that. And like, crack.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's teach us.
Yeah.
We'll keep that. We want to learn that. Okay. So that's how Bondo was developed. It took the best of all systems and incorporated it into one. And then the animal systems, of course, are replicas of the animal in the wild. So you get the tiger, the panther, you've got the boar, the bull, you've got the python, you've got the cobra, you've got the eagle. There's a monkey and a deer system and a patty bird as well, which is in most martial arts systems called white crane in Chinese. Okay. But the patty bird is native to the Burma area, Burma, India. Mm-hmm. So it emulates the defense and offensive attacks and systems of the animals, and so that's very intense, high level stuff, and you can't fight animal systems. You can't spar animal systems because they're just
too vicious.
Yeah, they're not meant to be. You know.
Yeah. You can't.
It's like an MMA. One of the two biggest problems that myself and many teachers, instructors, senseis, say across the world have is the implementation of knees and elbows into the MMA, because knees and elbows are not meant for sport. I mean, they're meant for deadly ending technique. You know, one shot, one kill technique.
Needed the
well,
temple.
you've got guys now who are being. There's been a lot more people have been killed in the ring than what the media
lets you know
about. There's a guy called the Cyborg here a couple of years ago, great MMA fighter, and he took a flying knee to the head, and it looked like somebody put a baseball through his skull, crushed his skull, and it didn't kill him. You know, but I mean,
just caved his head.
Yeah, and then you see the guys break their shin bones, you know, or get cut, and so I would like to see them take those out. I never voluntarily teach any of my people to fight inside the octagon, although several of them have. You know, that's their choice as men or women, but I prefer they don't, and for that reason, because as a teacher, you're like a father figure to them. You should be, and you don't want your children to get injured.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, don't put your hand on the fire.
Right.
It will burn you.
Right. Right.
Do not go in there and fight with knees and elbows.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds good. It looks good till you get hit with one of them. By accident or design, it's like getting hit by a bumper of a car. Right. It's not good.
So it's just a lot of blunt bone coming at you.
A lot of blunt bone and an elbow. When I was a police instructor, I learned to teach self-defense for police officers. One of the things, they had to have an impact bag. And you could hit this bag, and it would tell you how many pounds of pressure per square inch you could generate with a punch or a kick. And at that time, I was younger, stronger, you know, but my technique probably wasn't that good. But 410 pounds of pressure per square inch is what I was able to generate with an elbow. So, you know, that's some crazy. That's a lot of force. You do not want to get hit with those.
No, well, I kill them.
You know, it could if you hit a guy right. You know, and just a right angle,
and it's covering a lot of space.
Covering a lot of space.
So you mentioned, you know, police instruction. I know you worked extensively in law enforcement. Was martial arts something that you had an interest in long before?
That's a good segment here. That's what I want to know. I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, my father was a black belt, so I got introduced to it, and then of course the Green Hornet, you know, with Bruce Lee started.
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, man, you want to learn that.
I think we could kind of go right into this. Okay, so. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me to shut up. You're way meaner than I am. So
that's another myth about me. You know, everybody thinks I'm this mean, nasty guy. You know, and I'm really, you know, I carry my heart on my sleeve.
You've never had a drink of alcohol.
You know, no, I never drank in my life. I've been to bars and drink a lot of soda pop. Yeah. People, I've seen him drink. I've seen him stagger. I've had people tell me they got into fights with me in the jail. You know, and I whooped his ass in the jail. You know, and I was like. What are you talking about? You know, it's like it never happened. You know, So I used to. Don't you remember when we was kids? We'd drive them back roads and drink beers. I said that was my other cousin. It was not me. You were too drunk to remember my name. You know?
So all these years, and you know, like Chad last week, or it was just last show. You were talking about a hobby.
Oh yeah,
and you know. What? Okay, you have used this hobby.
You know, the arts.
Yeah, like your mixed martial arts. Your Bondo, and so has that led you into careers? Because I mean, is that what took you into? I know you went overseas. I know that what were you doing over there?
I mean, I initially went overseas as an international police instructor to help train Iraqi, Afghan forces, military, and police in democratic policing. More along the lines of, you know, United States democracy, because in these third world countries, the police don't like, sir, would you please put down your purse? Over there they hit
Let's
you with
talk
a
about
machete and they shoot
Really?
you.
Cut your arm off.
They
yeah.
got RPGs, and their submachine guns, and it's people in America have no idea how gracious and lucky that they are to live. And as a matter of fact, this is Veterans Day,
Yes, it is.
and thank all the veterans and the law enforcement and first responders for all their service. But people don't have a clue. Condoleezza Rice, I met twice when I was in Iraq at the embassy, and one of the things that she said that really touched me, made a lot of sense, was in America, people start at the finish line. Everywhere else in the world, they start at the starting line.
Right.
America, you start at the finish line.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get here, you're taken care of somehow.
Right. Right.
Roof over your head, food, clothing, some sort of government assistance financially.
That's the big thing right now. Everybody's trying to figure. I mean, the country right now. I think. I'm not trying to get you all fired.
I feel like everybody watched the Addams Family, and it was like, Lord,
Man, I just can't believe it. I mean, look at the gas prices, dude. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, it's,
How does that make any sense?
Well,
and I'm not here to talk. I'm not here to bash,
it's called 360 cents per gallon.
yeah.
Wow, man.
360 cents.
Yeah, 360.
I mean, this is it's unreal. But I mean, the country. I feel like like you talk about the way that you've been overseas, and I mean, I'm not trying to be a naysayer or doomsday guy, but man, it ain't looking good for the old U.S. right now.
I mean, at the core, the silent majority of the core, the majority of the country are middle class.
I don't know, dude. I just got back from a big trip out west, and the number one takeaway I got out of that was we ain't it.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of problems, all self-inflicted.
Well, I'm saying like Americans, and I don't mean this like in a prejudice type of way, but I'm saying like just your average. There, you see a lot of maybe they are Americans, but you just see a lot of Middle Eastern, a lot of
a
lot of different ethnicities, and I'm not
Well, that's what America's about.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, I did my DNA thing there because I was curious. I've got all this Native American in me, and I've got Irish and Scottish and Viking and Swedish and South African and I'm like related to Princess Diana.
We're all mutts.
Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Now you add those two up. Tell me how I got there. But it's.
Do you think that we're headed towards like where you came out of overseas? And
no, I mean, the formula's on the table for disaster. It's been here for a long time, and there are people in positions of power who want to see A, B, and C happen, that are for whatever their reasons. But it's just like a stack of dominoes. You still have to stack them up, and there's been some clear dominoes set, but the majority of the American people do not support that. And with elections, those can be changed if they are fair, clear, legal elections. And that's a hot potato in and of itself. But a lot of people have said, and I will repeat this, because I believe that this is true. Anybody who thinks that our current president, who is our current president, all the respect in the world, got more votes than Barack Obama, I just don't know how you can believe that. And if it's so, I'm wrong.
why? What makes you think that?
I just don't believe it.
So what do you?
I mean, look at what a great leader he is right now, and he's always been a great leader, like he is right now. And at least Barack Obama had some professionalism and presidential abilities.
I always felt like Barack was. I think we've talked about it on the show. I don't think he was a bad guy. I just felt like he
Very charismatic.
Well, I always felt like the major divide in the country came from him. Like I thought that he caused that, and I can't tell you why.
Well, I always blamed it. Like, I mean, he got in there and he got so hell bent on the healthcare thing that I feel like he lost sight of anything else.
He botched that up too.
And that was just a mess.
It was a good idea.
Well, maybe, yeah. It just, he jammed it through. There was, and that kind of is when it all ended of anybody working together to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it somehow went from all of us to us against them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Now, how that happened, I don't know. And we're still trying to break up that pod and piece it properly back together.
Yeah.
And that being said, there are so many different things. Politics is the worst thing. And I worked in politics.
Is that were you in politics?
Well, I was in politics for, I was a public figure for a number of years. And,
in Wellston?
I was police chief in Oak Hill, Wellston. I worked on an international stage for the U.S. State Department as a diplomat. And so I worked with other high-level ranking military officers and diplomats across, the spectrum.
Okay.
So politics is in every aspect of every part of your life.
So let's say you're overseas. What are their politics like whenever you're over there? I mean,
well, you're talking about the politics of the host nation.
Yeah.
They're different than ours.
Are they?
Yeah, a lot less forgiving.
What was a lot less forgiving?
Yeah.
What was the? Give me the best and worst systems you saw.
The best system's the democratic system without pale. The American, British, Canadian. But the worst are the trouble with things like in third world countries, and people will say this, and I'm going to knock on some wood here, but there's nothing in Iraq that couldn't be solved by a good dictator. And the reason that has been said by others and myself is because the populace has been dominated and dictated for hundreds of years, that they know nothing. So when you go over as an American and you try to teach them diplomatic principles and making your own decisions and doing what's best for your family, yourself, your family, your city, your country, people who tried to make individual systems ended up disappearing off the face of the earth under totalitarianism and dictatorship. So I studied the culture and the religion quite a bit because I wanted to understand who and what I was working with over there. So I asked a lot of questions of locals, not the presidents and the cabinet members, because they're the elites of the elites, and that's the them against us. There is no middle class over there. It's you've got everything or
It's
you've got
Iraq.
nothing.
Yeah.
Iraq, Afghanistan, Venezuela, any of these countries like that. And some of the people would say, Saddam didn't bother anybody that didn't go against him.
Yeah.
So if you kept your mouth shut and you walked a straight line, you were fine. But the minute you got off that curve, it was dealt with in a violent, vicious nature. There was no quarter. You can't speak your mind over there.
He didn't throw you in the drunk tank.
Well, he threw you into something, but it wasn't called the drunk tank. You never came back out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you did a little research, do some research on the Rustamiyah sewage plant, Iraq, and that'll give you an idea. I won't even discuss it.
So Curtis, when you go into a place like this and you're charged with, trying to create a successful state, I assume you were on those teams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you focus on? Like, do you focus on first starting with like basic infrastructure?
Yeah. Well,
or
I mean,
what? Like
infrastructure. Let's go back to World War II and the Marshall Plan, the war plan.
Yeah.
The Marshall Plan was designed to help rebuild Europe after the World War II. And if you watch any of the old films or black and white, I mean, there much of the world was flattened.
Yeah.
I mean, flat.
Demolished, wasn't it?
There were no buildings. There were no
They go into
windows.
towns and just the battle was in the town.
Yeah, and it was destroyed.
Yeah.
So in the Middle East, things were much more tactical precision. You'd blow up a building and nothing else around it. But,
Or a room in that
or a
building.
room. But things that we take for granted here, like oil, water, electricity, rail, airplanes,
And were a
telephone
lot of those like
systems.
targets? And
Well,
stuff
they're
during
always targets.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
the first target you want to hit.
basic
in
utilities.
Utilities, first things you want to hit is electrical and
Yeah.
water. You want to
Yeah.
shut those down. Communications.
Right.
Communications first, electric, water. But the infrastructure there was so bad from the first Gulf War and the Iraqis. We put tariffs on everything and blockades, and they weren't able to buy new materials and do a lot of things. That might have been me. I was the president. I'm sorry. I got to call you back. I'll call you back. It happens.
Yeah.
And so one of the struggles was developing a water system. The Haditha Dam was breaking, leaking. They had no telephone system outside of hard lines, and all the hard lines went to the palaces.
So if you're Chad and Pudge in
you had no
Iraq,
phone. You
cell
got on
phone?
your bicycle, or you walked 10 miles to give a message, or you caught a cab. The entire city, like they said, Baghdad had no electricity. And I flew over it one night, and the whole town's lit up like New York City. But it was all run off of generators. The entire city was run off of generators.
and gas.
And gas. So gas
they had
over there.
oil, yeah.
Oil, nickel a gallon maybe over there,
Yeah, why wouldn't they?
But I worked in critical infrastructure where I was the head of national security for oil, water, and electricity. And one of my primary jobs was to develop security protocols to protect those from terrorists from blowing them up, blowing up lines, tearing down electrical systems and things like that.
How would you protect those?
Well, I managed a $300 million budget, and what I did, because I had worked at the atomic plant and the Department of Energy in security and nuclear security and counterterrorism. So I developed a strategy to implement U.S. safety standards and security standards in the Middle East. So I developed, with the Army Corps of Engineers, security protocols, tank traps, fences, guard towers, personnel, training.
Now, was your personnel, were those contracted Americans, or were you using local folks?
For what I was doing, we were doing local. There was a lot of emphasis to train up the locals.
Okay.
Now there was a huge security force, international security forces, guys from all over. You had guys from Korea, you had guys from New Zealand, some of the Kiwis, the British forces, the French for a little while. Koreans.
Give me an example of the town size that you're trying to develop a water system for.
Well, Baghdad is like L.A. It was.
And you're in charge of this.
I'm not in charge of the water, but I'm in charge of the security. Yeah,
around the water.
Yeah, I worked with the senior consultants
Of a city the size of L.A.
Well, the whole country.
The whole country. This was a water system for the country. Right?
Yeah.
But the country's the size of L.A.
No, the country's size of Rhode Island.
Okay.
Yeah, but Baghdad was, I don't know how many millions. You'd have to Google it. I couldn't tell you figures off the top of my head, but big. And so you had to develop oil, water, electricity for that city to function. Okay, so
and you had to make sure that there wasn't a threat that's going to blow up the work that's already been done.
Well, what was happening in, let's say oil's the easiest to explain. You'd have these 300 miles of oil lines above the ground, some of them under the ground. And some local would go through there with a drill, and some guy would pay him $20.
And he'd drill holes in tanks.
Yeah, and then a spark would hit and it'd blow up half the town, and there'd be 20 miles between what we called shutoff valves. So $20 million worth of oil would just leak into the sand before you could get it stopped. Then you have to go back and repair it, and they go down 5 miles down the road and blow up another one. So
you're better off just kill that son of a bitch
before
he ever gets these drill out.
A lot of those guys never made it. They're not. They're not real highly educated over there. There's the haves and have-nots. The smart people over there are as smart as anybody we have here. And most of them are Western trained and Western educated. But the average life expectancy. Well, how old do you think the average life expectancy for a Middle East man is?
28.
36.
36.
And tuberculosis runs rampant. And so in America, I think, again, the numbers, we'll use these as approximate, like 1.5 million people die of tuberculosis in America every year. Yet our entire national focus is on this COVID thing where, 0.1% of the people die from that. And it's serious. Any death is one too many. But we magnify, we terrorize, we brainwash the populace into fear tactics. And that's part of a totalitarian, disinformation campaign. It goes all the way back to the Nazis. If you study Hitler in Nazi Germany, you will see that a lot of things you're seeing today in America are a template of what was seen back then.
I think people don't. I think people right now are not confused about that situation, but how you've got. I don't know what you are. Don't care as far as vaccine, non-vaccine, but and I'll say this about the people that aren't vaccinated. Now, some of them are just standing up and saying, they're just doing that to argue. There's a group of people that do that no matter what.
Let me throw this at you.
Hang on. But there's also another group of people, kind of like you, that are saying, it's not that we don't agree with medicine.
Exactly.
But we don't agree with the tactic that you're using to do this. Now, sometimes I'm just well, I know their tact sucks, but we probably just need to do it.
Let me give you this idea.
But you've seen it.
As an American and as somebody that worked in third world countries with some pretty bad people, and worked with local diplomats and people in Washington and senators and things such as that. This is America, home of the free, land of the brave. We've got this situation, and I could get into all kind of different, counterterrorism, terrorism scenarios,
Tactics.
But let me give President Biden just one piece of Appalachia hillbilly advice. You put a vaccine out there and say, we have a vaccine that is going to help you get well. Here it is. And let the people choose to take it or not. And 75 to 95% of the people would have took that vaccine already.
I agree.
Yep.
And that would be the end of it.
It
is the shoving it down your throat, threatening your job, your
did
family,
they do that,
making
or
your
did the
children.
media do that?
The media doesn't do anything without. You don't even want to get into that.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Because you're seeing people like Rogan just expose the shit out of. Did you see that?
See, let's go back to combat, military tactics. Disinformation and information is used in such a way as to create fear,
terrorism,
trust, loyalty, amongst the populace. If you tell a lie enough times it becomes the truth.
To someone.
To someone. And people in America believe if it's in a newspaper and it's not true, you're going to get sued. So somebody could say, what a debonair, sweet, kind, handsome fella I am, put that in the newspaper, and people say, well, he must be a debonair, sweet, kind person. And I say, you ever meet that guy? There ain't nothing debonair about him.
Yeah.
So, but they believe that if it wasn't true, I could sue the media.
Print that 5 times.
Yeah. You print that 5 times, people start thinking, man, they really like this guy. So you can print negative, you can report negative, you can report positive. You never see, you've never seen a song written about clean laundry. It's always about dirty laundry. Dirty laundry sells. Get the widow on the set.
Yeah.
People, the human psyche craves, and whether this is a religious, evil, non-evil, good thing, they crave madness and mayhem.
Well, I think you make an absolutely great point in the fact of, when you approach everyday Americans, don't you think you could get a lot more done by asking than telling or demanding?
That's because we're Americans.
That's what I mean.
Some of us still remember what it's like to fight, to be free, and what our grandparents, my grandfather was, I'll say this, my grandfather was an alcoholic, one of them. And he drank, and he had a really bad problem. That's one of the reasons I've never drank in my life. And
your grandfather?
Yeah, my dad's dad. And I never understood it. And I've seen a lot of Vietnam vets come home, and they was all drinking and fighting and smoking pot, and then I eventually became a man, and I was 45 years old when I went to the Middle East. And I go over there, and I'm working with people, and we're getting attacked all the time. Bombs are 20, 30 mortars coming in on you, in indirect fire 24/7. Rockets, suicide bombers.
So you lived at, like, you probably listened to Sandy. Sandy is,
yeah.
So you had just stuff going off around you
all the time, 24/7. And I started getting pretty nervous, having nerve problems. And I thought, why am I'm this hardcore guy, right? So upset, And I looked around me and I realized, all my friends were drinking from 10 a.m. to 10 at night. Liquor, hard liquor, Crown. Yeah. So people were self-medicating.
Yeah.
And I got home and I asked my sister, and at this point I'm 55 years old. Grandpa was in the Navy in World War II. I said, where was he in the Navy? Somewhere in the South Pacific. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
He was self-medicating his pain, and he was up there and he was fighting kamikazes and and you talk about war, tactical war today with the technology is nothing. I mean, it's still bad, but not like people in World War One, World War II, hand to hand, just. It was
Can you
a whole
imagine
different
Gettysburg
level.
and
Oh God, no,
people coming out with them bayonets and you knew
savage.
You knew at dawn
Savageness.
You're going to at least lose an arm.
Yeah, savageness, and people can't wrap their. People have short memories.
Well, and then you compare the battlefield medicine too, man. You take a musket ball.
Yeah.
Back then you may not survive it if it's in your leg or something. Now, I mean, my goodness, you're in a level 4 trauma center within 15 minutes.
Right. Right.
And they were 40 miles away from anything by horse.
Oh yeah.
And just people, just in general, they don't realize we take so much for granted. So much for granted. I mean, this thing right here, the cell phone. The greatest, worst invention of the 21st century is technology, because it has created international world communication in seconds, access to any and all knowledge the world knows within seconds in any language, or also any other.
Nobody's unreachable.
No, and you can be taken to sites that are going to manipulate your mind, your body, your integrity, your family, and you are subject to a whole world of evil and good. And one thing I learned about in war, true war, is, and I wasn't a soldier, I was a civilian at the time, but I was a man, with 25 years of law enforcement experience. But evil and goodness exist on completely different spectrums. So I saw the best of the world and of humanity, and I saw the worst. And, you come home and people say, well, what was it like? Did you kill anybody? And you ask any veteran that, and it's something that you cannot describe. They'll say, I can't describe it. Yeah. You ask a few guys that's been in combat.
Well, I try to be respectful.
I mean, but if it comes up, because they never talked about World War II in my family. I didn't know anything about what Grandpa.
I don't know how you could have went through World War II and not killed somebody or something.
And the thing is that you can't describe what a real car bomb or a rocket exploding 50 feet from you is actually like, because there's nothing on television that will ever prepare you.
We've never had that
for the reality of what it's truly like. They set off a car bomb in Baghdad, maybe 20 miles away or 10 miles away, and it would rock up, the embassy with 3-foot thick concrete walls, and you thought the car bomb went off outside.
Yeah.
And it was 10 miles away.
Yeah.
So imagine being within a mile of that. I mean, it's got a kill radius of a half a mile.
Yeah.
And it blows everything up. Well, guess what? Everything that goes up
comes down.
Right?
So how'd you keep from medicating yourself over there?
Man,
you're focusing on Bondo, maybe?
Well, I did a lot of focusing on a lot of things, but I suffered quite a bit. I mean, I was really traumatized. I mean, it took me, I still have issues, triggers. I'll call it triggers, and everybody does. They'll see something or hear something, and it'll You know, I can remember I came home in July one time, and my wife and I had been to a movie. It was right before the 4th of July, and I got out of the car, and somebody set off a bottle rocket next door house over. And I seen that, and I jumped under the back transmission of the car, proned out. Get down, get down. My wife walked around. She looked at me, and she's like, really? Seriously? And it took me a second to realize that I wasn't there. You don't stand up. You don't wait around. You know, I mean,
well, you're just mentally programmed.
Yeah, and that's something that's very, very difficult to shut off, and that's why it's called post-traumatic stress disorder. And another thing that civilians or the populace don't realize is PTSD isn't necessarily combat related. It could be something that happened to you as a child. Maybe you were molested. Maybe you were assaulted.
Took a bad ass kicking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean bad. I mean you never forget it, and so there's all kind of triggers. So those triggers still happen in your lifetime, and it takes a while for you to put a buffer between them. Quite a while. And there's medication and time, but time and talking to like-minded people is probably the best. Getting it off your chest, not holding it in. Self-medicating. People who I'm not going to see a psychologist. I want to have this Jack and Coke, and I've seen a lot of special operators that drank a lot of hard liquor, because they thought if I took Prozac, I'll lose my security clearance and my job. And I remember I was in the doctor's office, and I was talking to the doctor, and I said, I just can't relax, I can't sleep. Of course, you get bombed 3 times a night. Well, I don't understand. Why do you feel this way? And a rocket hit the embassy at that exact moment. Damn near knocked all the windows out. And I said, because hello. Yeah. He goes, well, I can give you this, I can give you that. I said, I can't take those medications. I said, I'll lose my security clearance. And this is the first time I ever heard anything like this, but it makes so much sense. He said, Curtis, Washington, D.C. could not operate without Prozac.
Yeah.
Now think about that.
Oh man.
Think about that.
Dude,
oh yeah.
Can you imagine the stress?
So there's a lot of people. Why are you psychologically unstable? Because I had an upset stomach and I took a bottle of beer.
Yeah.
But
think about President Biden right now. Okay, how old is that cat? 77, 76?
I don't know, but I honestly,
think his day though, Curtis. I see you on social
I don't know.
media.
I don't know if even.
I'm saying, that cat's day probably starts around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning with him getting up. He has to go to.
I would say with Donald Trump that would have been true, but I would say Biden's day starts around 9 or 10 a.m. Everything at that level.
How is that level?
At that level, there are people in place to take care of everything.
He's just a front man.
He's just a front man. Like people say, well, Barack Obama is the president of the United States. He's not really in charge of nothing. The Congress and the Senate, they run, and I call the thing. I'm gonna put this out there, and people might think that I'm nuts. Yeah, man, okay, I'm good with that. But there's I'll call it a board of directors. I believe that there's a board of directors
for the country,
for the whole world, but definitely for each country. And those are the 12 most powerful people in America. Bill Gates is one of them. George Soros is one of them.
Jeff Bezos,
Walton, all of those guys, and they are the people. And this is documented fact. You go back to Henry Ford, you go back to Carnegie, and those, and they started buying politicians. And
think of those guys.
And they were putting people in power to do their bidding. And if anybody doesn't realize that
4 people ran the world back then.
Yeah. People don't realize that still happens today. I mean, how do you get somebody like some of these politicians been in office 50 years? You can't run against them.
Yeah.
You can say, I'm going to run for U.S. Senate.
Nope, your family will get death threats.
Ain't happening.
That kind of happened here locally to an extent one time.
I seen that happen. I won't even. A local mayor and a local director of public safety, careers and lives were nearly ruined because they were friends, worked together, and had different political views. So and that's just here,
Yeah. Could you imagine? I mean, we're off the grid.
Yeah, we're kind of off the grid, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think a lot of people. My father used to always tell me. I always believed, you know, I was in athletics and education and hard work. You could become anything, and that's true, as long as you know the right people. And my dad used to say, "It's not what you know, son, it's who you know." My dad was an amazing man, an amazing athlete, you know. And I thought, no, this is America, Dad, you know. I'm going to you know, and it's like you hit that wall, and it's like, well, if you knew A, B, and C, you know, you might be able to get a ladder to climb that wall. But you don't really want to believe that when you're a kid, and it takes you 20 years of hitting that wall with no ladder to realize that you need to
do some networking.
Do some networking, yeah. You need to do some social media, buddies.
Yeah.
You need to make some friends because, you know, and nowhere was that more prevalent than in the Middle East. You know, it was all about who you came in with when you did your tour, who you played poker with, who your drinking partners were, who you worked with, and you networked and developed. And those people over there would become, they give themselves these resumes and these titles. You know, I'm the international. Man of mystery over there, you know, and extraordinaire, and you know, he holds position of the international man of mystery. Man, let's give him this job. You know, hey, you know,
because once you get your clearance, you can pretty well go over there and do whatever you want to do.
Well, it's not quite that easy, but you know,
once you're there,
I mean, let me tell you something. Everybody who was anybody in the world of international politics, law enforcement, counterterrorism, and diplomacy was there. And you passed them every day in the hall. Petraeus, you know, Zalmay Khalilzad, you know, the president of Iraq, you know, Senator this, that, you know.
And you were right there with them.
Right there with them, you know, within arm's reach. You know, I mean, you have access to them.
Have you ever met a president? Have you ever?
I didn't get to meet President Bush. He was there when I was home on leave. I met Condoleezza Rice twice. John Kerry, the senator, was over there, and I refused to even talk to him. I don't think he's a good American or a great American. Not our John Kerry.
Not the Wells.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So yeah, I mean, you know. I had. I'll tell it. Well, I'm not. No, I won't tell this story because I'm still trying to get a job. So,
but is now when you found your way over there as a specialist, how did you? Like how did you find your way over there? And then you get over there and you kind of, you know, speaking of the network, you climb the ladder.
This is kind of funny and not very funny at all.
Okay.
So. I took a job as a police chief in Wellston, Ohio, with the idea that I was from there. I knew the community, and I knew that I thought I could turn the place around. And I wasn't the first choice. And there were people who were willing to do anything to see that not happen. So I had been there for a number of days and did investigations and gathered information and developed cases, several criminal cases against individuals, and I brought that forth and was immediately terminated.
Ooh.
And so I filed a federal lawsuit, and it took 4 years, but I won it. That's what a lot of people don't know. They think, well, you got fired as police chief from Wellston, blah, blah, blah. But they don't know the backstory of what it was all about, the caseload, the BCI authentication of the evidence, went into federal lawsuit, being reinstated. None of that made the front page of the paper or the radio.
Which you probably kind of were glad. I mean,
no, I went to Iraq and I became, you know, a national security advisor and a senior consultant for the U.S. State Department and a diplomat, GS-15 scale, which is as high as you can get.
Wellston chief of police.
Yeah, but the very direct and sad fact of that is I couldn't keep a job in little old Wellston, Ohio, and I could climb to the highest levels of the national government overseas.
Why do you think that is? What's your thought behind that?
Nobody liked me.
Who you know, right?
That goes back to what
I knew the wrong people. I knew the wrong people. But you know, people. You know, some people are willing to do anything.
Now, did you find, like, working abroad like that in a very stressful situation, does that kind of level the playing field a little bit? And a lot of guys are working on their own grit and what you're able to do, because not everybody wants to go to work in the middle of a war zone, man. I mean,
well, I'll tell you what. I wanted to serve my country. I needed a job. I felt like I was pretty good at what I did in my subject matter expertise. And I went over there and I found out that, I was one of the few people who actually had the credentials to do the job.
okay.
A lot of people over there might have a training certificate there was a guy, for instance, that was hired as a police trainer who was a security guard at Walmart.
Oh my!
But he got the clearance.
Well, he didn't have a clearance. He
got overseas.
He got over there because he needed a position, and he told him he taught people how to mark prices on Walmart. Merchandise, I guess.
Yeah.
He didn't last long, but there were people over there who said I was the chief of
Paul
police.
Blart is over there. Paul Blart, the mall cop, is over there.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, how did you go about getting that job?
Well, there was information went out through all the police security agencies asking for recruits. We need trainers to go over here and do this, and here's how much money we're willing to pay to do that. And there's a reason why they pay that much money.
Oh, I would say.
And there's a lot of people over there that knows, well, you made this much money and I pay taxes. Yeah, and I couldn't. You want to see how many people didn't make it home?
Yeah.
More contractors. In fact, probably 30% more contractors die than military personnel.
Yeah.
But military personnel get all, and rightfully so. But if a military personnel gets killed over there, it's on all national news. If a contractor gets killed over, or 10 contractors, it might make the news, and you might not hear about it.
Yeah.
And all of these guys normally are prior military personnel, and they're going back over to serve the country, and they, or they're more experienced. And I remember one time I was going on a convoy with military personnel, and we was in a military convoy with people from the police. It was called Camp Shield. It was in the Baghdad Indian Territory, but that's where all the major ministries were. And we were going from point A to point B, and we had a gunner with a M60 up on top. And kids, 20, 21 years old.
Yeah.
And, somebody seen a dog in the street, and they put car bombs under the street, or something suspicious happened. They start screaming at each other, "Oh, my God, get down, John, get down." And the guy come down and, just scared to death and shaking. I'm thinking, they're supposed to be protecting me, and I've got more training, more experience than anybody in this convoy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to be the guy protecting some of these kids, because that's what they were. They're kids.
Yeah.
I'm a Marine.
Yeah.
Well, you're a 21-year-old kid who's had some training and is put into a situation.
You're tough.
But let me tell you something. An AK-47 bullet will go right through you, whether you're a Marine or you're,
a contractor,
or a civilian. Mm-hmm. You'll be just as dead as the next guy.
Yep.
That's the reality. And people don't get that.
Yeah.
Because we sell a package. This is the package, we're selling this iPhone or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it'll do this, and this. They don't tell you if you drop it in the water, it may be ruined.
Right.
Or if you drop it, while looking at yourself in the mirror, taking selfies, you might crack the screen. Because that's not part of the cell. Cell is I can talk to anybody, do this, or Google, whatever. So, same thing in military services. We sell, a lot of things, but what you don't sell is the downside.
Right. How much interaction is there between contractors and the actual military?
Quite a bit.
Do you find yourself working together with them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There is some animosity, some, but a lot of times. For instance, I had a guy that I was working with, and I was with a commander, and I worked around what we'll call the round table, and we had 2-star generals there, 3-star generals there, the ambassador at the table, the senior consultants for oil, water, electricity, maybe security, and myself and others, and these two guys got into a discussion, and one of the civilian leaders called upon one of the military commanders, and he didn't, address him by his proper rank. And he immediately came back as Commander John Doe. And the civilian said, "Well, I'm retired now, but it's Colonel John Doe." So yeah, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
little bit of that.
egos and
Yeah.
there's a lot of assholes, and
Yeah,
and, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but there's also a great deal of good men and women over there. So wouldn't be here today without them.
Yeah.
All right, so let's lighten this up a little bit.
Okay.
I want to take a different turn.
All right. So we're back. Part
Yeah,
two.
yeah, part
I got me
two.
butt heavy.
Yeah, I poured an IPA into my coffee
Now,
cup.
we got too serious the last time.
Yeah, we've got to
was
get
good.
this going. Boy, I'll tell you, I could sit and listen to that.
They said we were going to with
I
Curtis
know,
Jayjohn.
and I like it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got to touch some of these topics, man.
Yeah, I mean, they're tough things to talk about.
Yeah, I know.
But, and it's my opinion and my experience.
Yeah.
It may not be the opinion and experience of someone.
Hey, that's what we say about our show all the time.
You know,
we
I
might
mean,
not be
you know.
dead on with people's thoughts and opinions, but all we
I mean, I
do is
worked with
share
all
ours.
kind of people over there,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and it's like I didn't see that, or I don't, you know, and like my wife doesn't believe in aliens. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't, but I mean,
You believe
they've
in
got
aliens?
like, oh yeah, they've got like a Mexican restaurant right uptown, and one in Wellston too, and those are legally.
You believe in aliens, Chad?
I should never brought that.
Yeah. I mean,
Senor.
like that sort of alien, perhaps. You know what, man? Yeah, I think I do.
I kind of believe there has to be life out there somewhere.
I want there to be.
Oh, come on now.
I want there to be,
come on,
man.
guys.
You ever been
Just
to Area
because-
54?
I've been to Area 51.
Or 51, yeah. That's how much I know about it.
Yeah, I've been to the front gate.
You have?
Yes, I have.
Why?
Because a friend of mine I worked with could take me to the gate.
Yeah.
I went to see him, and he took me to the
What's
gate.
in there?
I never got past the gate.
Never got past the gate.
What do they do? Kill you after you work there?
I don't
How
know.
does this
No,
not
man,
leak
I'll
out?
tell you
I'll
what's
tell you what.
cool.
Listen, that is nowhere that you want to trespass.
No, boy.
I mean,
Are you dead?
yeah,
Probably. I think it's really cool, man. Like, if you.
see, I worked at the nuclear plant, so a lot of people call the security forces, which are police officers. They're federal police officers, but they're contractors, but they're still federal police officers. No one likes to admit that because it's intimidating to the people in the surrounding area and the people who work there. Trust me. Under the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, they have the right to use lethal force for theft, not just self-defense. So if they believe you're trying to steal something, property, but nuclear property, they can kill you dead or
Because that nuclear property is capable of
yes.
mass
So
destruction.
now over here, as a police officer, you can't use deadly force. Like if a guy's got a van full of TVs, you can't just shoot him.
Yeah.
But if you believe those TVs have
bombs in them.
bombs in them, you just shoot the crap out of the guy.
Yeah.
You know. So
So you went to the gate.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about Area 51 for me, man, the thing I like to, every time I go to Las Vegas, I'm enamored with this because I saw like a documentary on it one time. And when you go to McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, look over, there's these white planes with a red stripe on them. And that's where the employees of Area 51 fly to work out of every day and fly back in these white planes with a red stripe on them. And you'll see them there. And those are the people and the folks that work at Area 51.
Let me just. I'll make a small statement of fact, and I'll mention a guy's name, Bob Lazar. In the 80s and 90s, Bob Lazar was an employee of a certain place, and he had what he claimed was access to certain things in certain areas, and people in places with the ability to do things ruined him, erased history, education, lots of things happened. One of the things he talked about nearly 30 years ago was an element called 115. I think it's beryllium or something like that. It's an anti-gravity material that didn't exist. But it is now on the periodic tables 30 years later. The very thing that he said that they had, that they used, that they got from people from Mexico, you know, it now exists. And then you have the military releasing videos of something they're chasing through the air. You know, this stuff's been going on for years.
Years.
Like I said, I mean, I'm a religious guy. I believe in God, and a lot of people think that, you know, well, if there's intelligent life out there, that, you know, it might challenge Christianity. Well, you know, who's to say angels? I mean, aliens are, by definition, from another world. Angels aren't from Earth. They come from heaven to earth.
Right.
So,
we can take that.
So that being said, you know, who's to say?
You know.
Yeah, you could go with that all day, but I believe in God, and I believe in a greater power. And if anybody thinks that the human being is the be all end all most intelligent, then you're fooling yourself, because we went from horses and buggies to the moon in less than 100 years. That didn't happen because we're
out of like a world or a galaxy that is millions of years old.
Yes,
and we did that in 100 years.
Yeah, billions of years, and you know we had help. So I mean, that's just how I feel about it. You can question my sanity or education or brain, you know, but I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not blind.
But you didn't get through the gate of Area 51, Curtis. That's your goal now.
That's not my goal. That never was my goal. In fact, when he turned left to go to the gate, I got a little nervous. I mean, I was like, dude, do they know this is you?
So
do they know your car?
So part 2, we're going with you want. Okay, let's talk about this.
Okay.
Talk about these Frisbees.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that's what started the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about how in the world, like every kid when they're growing up has access to a Frisbee. They play with it a little bit. How in the world did you find yourself in a championship?
You're going to love this. I sucked at baseball.
Okay.
I sucked at baseball.
Okay.
And so I had a neighbor who was on a Frisbee team called Guts Frisbee team back when it was really huge, when Whammo Frisbee first started and the sport started.
Is that Frisbee golf?
Well, at that time it was Guts, and then they developed games. I mean, this all started from kids in backyards, you know, and these guys now
What's
are...
Guts?
Guts is a game, 3 to 5 man teams, and they line up 15 yards away from each other. It's kind of like...
Dodgeball?
Well, no. If you catch the disc, it's thrown by somebody 100 mile an hour at you, then there's a nullified point. If you drop it, the other team gets a point. You play 21.
Kind of like dodgeball.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay. So, you know, these guys were throwing these things, you know, like 100 mile an hour, you know.
It's your face.
So my neighbor's name was Gary Cox, and he's a tax consultant guy up in Columbus now. And Joe Essman, Dr. Joe Essman, Dennis Joe Essman, was at one time, you know, world champion distance thrower and Hall of Fame Guts player. And I was like 9 years old, 10 years old, and they're over there throwing these Frisbees against the wall. You know, like I get this concrete garage. I'm like, why are you doing that? He said, stand over there. So I stood against the wall like dodgeball, and he throwed these things at me, man. And, you know, try and catch it if you can. Yeah, well, that wasn't working out. In fact, Joe Essman broke a couple of my fingers. I'm telling you, dude, you just can't even imagine. You just can't even imagine how hard, and this thing's moving in different directions, you know, and it looked like something on Star Wars, you know. Yeah. And he'd laugh today. He'd get a kick out of that. But, man, the dude still is just a vicious thrower. He's world renowned. I mean, he's very highly respected. Yet he just lives 10 miles from here, and no one knows it. You know.
Did you know like the world champion cornhole players from here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
What, Cody Henderson?
Yeah. Henderson.
Yeah.
Is it Henderson?
I think so.
Yeah. Is he your age? You're older than you?
You know.
Is he world champion?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's all he used to do. Play cornhole.
Really?
That's all he does now, and he gets paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are now making over $100,000 a year playing professional disc golf. Wow. And when I was at my peak, when I was say 20, you know, there was no money in it. You know, you couldn't make a living.
Were you just like entering tournaments on the weekends?
You had to place in the top 3 in so many national championships, and then you got invited to the world championship. And so I was working and trying to do that, and I never made it. And Joe Essman made it to the world championships in the Rose Bowl a couple times. And
where's that at?
At Pasadena at the
And the
Rose
Rose
Bowl.
Bowl.
Yeah, the World Championships was there.
Really?
And now they have a professional disc golf World Championship, and they still have tournaments where they throw for distance. He was a distance champion.
So he'd go to
Dutch champion.
Pasadena to do this.
Oh yeah, he was,
He was in it.
he was he's as good as it gets, and he's still
Hall of Famer.
he's still amazing.
Now, do you ever pick up a Frisbee now?
Well, I tried. I got 7 screws in my shoulder and no rotator
okay.
cuff,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm not supposed to even be able to lift my arm. But
Yeah.
I do have a disc golf course at my farm in Wellston, and I'm
Okay.
going to kind of try to open it up just for something to do. I used to have an archery range there, and it was open to the public. And then coincidentally, one Apple Festival Sunday, someone decided to drive out there and steal all my targets. So
Oh, gee.
loaded them up. A couple kids loaded them up, put them in pickup trucks, and I don't. To this day,
Hope
I have
they're
no
enjoying
idea.
them.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I think I've seen.
gee. So that was the end of the archery.
I told the
range.
mayor not too long ago. I think that's what they ought to do with Eddie Jones is make it a disc golf.
Yeah. Well, John Darrow is speaking with Charlie Hudson in Wellston, and they've got some sort of grant, beautification or whatever, and there's been discussion. We're hoping that they can set some money aside to put one in down there at the ball fields in Wellston, and design
That's a big
one.
thing.
Oh, it's huge.
That would draw in some folks, man. If
And then all you have to do is,
golf.
you invite some church groups, youth, some kids for gym class, bring them out there and throw, play, teach them. Then next thing you know, you got a high school team, and you got people playing, and it's very, very popular, especially around metropolitan areas. And there's a professional league on Facebook. You can join the Facebook group and watch them play. And I mean, these guys are so much better. Like when I was playing, if you threw one, I could throw one over 100 yards in high school.
Okay.
The furthest I threw one was over 140 yards. The world record today is over 600.
Oh, my goodness.
Or it's like, 1,200 feet or something like that. It's like 3 football fields.
Wow.
Yeah, they go out there at the salt flats and they throw them. And
That's from here down to the library.
you can't even see them. I mean, it's just insane. And
Wow.
but when I played, they were Frisbees. Now they're called discs, and there's a complete different dynamic, plastics, design,
ever played?
aerodynamic. Crazy.
They have like, correct me if you. They have like what, like par, or they'll have like a bogey one, or like.
Well, it's just like a
chipper.
golf
Yeah,
course.
just
it's
like
a golf course, and they have a
Yeah.
basket that
Yeah,
you
the
throw,
basket
you throw
with
it into
chains
a
on it.
But
basket.
your disc is almost like your clubs.
Yeah, you've got putters.
Yeah.
They don't fly very far, but they're solid and more stable. And then
Yeah.
you've got drivers, and then you got some discs that tend to
Loft.
Yeah, they loft, or they go to the right, or they go to the left. Got a hook to
draw.
them, or they fly straight. Yeah, and it's a whole different. It's
You
a
carry a
whole
bag.
You carry a bag, and I carried a bag even way back then. I had baggage, so
Yeah.
So you carry a bag and
Usually in the middle of the woods.
yeah, woods or fields, and you get same thing with like 3D archery. It's great family fun, exercise, and
Well, this is good transit. Let's talk a little bit about your archery career.
oh yeah, okay. Well,
I mean, this is a guy that can shoot an aspirin out of the air with a longbow.
recurve.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, a longbow you could too, but I mean that's something I used to do. It's not something that someone does every time they let an arrow loose.
Yeah, right. right.
But I hit I think 6 out of 10 one time, or 7 out of 10.
Aspirin?
Yeah, that was the best I ever did.
Yeah,
So you threw it up.
No, I had somebody else throw it up.
yeah.
And then I'd shoot it. But there was guys like Stacy Groscup, and he was a minister in West Virginia. He was one of the best. He could throw it up and shoot it out himself. He was a minister down in West Virginia, and
An aspirin.
An aspirin, yeah. It's so hard to get your head wrapped around because it sounds so impossible, and it's just like I generally shoot pop bottle caps out of the air because people can see them, and I did a demonstration in 2014 down in at a national gathering of martial artists and military veterans, and it was down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I did a demonstration. I shot a playing card in half with an arrow, and then I shot some pop caps out of the air, and no aspirin because the wind was blowing so hard you couldn't see it. So if it's very windy, it's very difficult because it's flying in 4 directions instead of just up and down. Yeah. So it's a timing, hand-eye coordination sort of thing.
Why would so like whenever you did that presentation? Were you just doing it to show them that you could do it, or what was the idea behind it?
Well, yeah, it was just to show them, that the longbow was a weapon of war. And Bondo being a war system, and we had World War II veterans, Vietnam veterans, and things, and to show them what you could do with the bow. And until the crossbow and gunpowder came along, the English longbow was the weapon of choice. It was the MR, M16, or M4 that we use today. So it was a weapon of choice in warfare. And quiet, stealthy, deadly. And, you could shoot 200-300 yards with a 100-pound longbow.
They said that those guys they didn't hold a quiver. They put them in their hands. Do you do that? Like that?
I have. Yeah, I mean, I've got a technique, but it's not quite like that. It's just kind of my own little thing. But I mean, they had quivers or they'd have baskets. So I mean, like soldiers.
The Indians was shooting longbows.
Well, their version of a longbow, it'd be like a bow made of Osage orange or something like that. A soft.
What's the difference between that and a recurve?
Lots.
Pressure.
The recurve is a reflex-deflex limb that has more snap to it, so it has more speed. Yeah, it's more speed and different type of handle grip. So it's a technological type thing that as archery technology moved into the compound bow, and the compound bows have went to where, I mean, it's insane. They shoot 350, 400 foot per second. Longbow shoots 180 foot per second.
I know guys right now that are starting to think that, like, if you are going to bow hunt, you should, just for humane sake, use a crossbow because they're a different animal now. Like the crossbows are just deadly.
They are very accurate, but I actually have done a lot of wildlife guiding too as part of my experience, and people tend to think that they're a gun, and they tend to take shots. I had 3 deer wounded. Two out of 3 deer were wounded with crossbows this year, and we recovered them later. But that's not true in the field. But if you're shooting at a target in the open with the scope, they're deadly accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, you could hit a quarter, 50 yards probably. But these tree limbs come out of nowhere when you're in the woods.
Yeah.
They deflect, and like I said, deer might jump, might move. So I would rather have a guy hunting with a crossbow and be able to hit his target than with a longbow and miss, for ethical reasons.
Yeah.
I hunt with a longbow. I haven't shot an animal in 12 years because there's nothing I want to
go through that with.
Yeah, if the proper situation gives us itself, and I'll maybe take a shot.
Yeah.
But it'd be a special animal, a special time, and it's all about the experience now. It's about, for me, hunting is like a religious experience.
Me too.
It's my church, and you can really do a lot of clearing your head and enjoying nature. I don't know how anyone can't believe in God, because when you see all the creations and all the perfectness of everything in this world, and not believe that there's something beyond our knowledge that created it, is just mind-blowing to me. Just
How much time do you spend in the woods now, would you say,
actually hunting, not very much, but probably
10 hours a week?
no 40.
40?
Yeah,
Oh,
probably.
my. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of time outdoors.
And that's
in the spring and the fall.
That's cutting firewood. That's
trimming trails, checking feeders, taking care of things for outdoor
Walking
recreation. I've got 2 lakes and 4 cabins out there at my place. I really don't even advertise or really rent anything, but it's just a lot of work. I probably mowed 30 acres, and I'm to the point where I have to try and get family to help, because I'll tell you what, that riding on a riding lawnmower sounds great, but when you got a ruptured disc in your back, it's vicious.
Yeah.
Man, I just got 10 acres, and it about works me to death.
Well, it's a full-time job.
It really, there's constantly
every day
trees
you're mowing,
falling.
3 hours.
I'm so glad I got rid of cutting grass.
Yeah.
I told him the other day, Tyler, I said, hey, grass is done for the year. You're done about it.
Yeah, mine was done about 2 weeks ago. I mowed the last grass I'm mowing this year.
Yeah, I think that's a shit ton of work.
And it is. And then you start thinking about weed eating.
And the money. It costs a lot of money. You
better believe it.
I mean, because you got to take care of your equipment. You got to buy equipment.
Well, I got a friend whose name I won't mention for obvious reasons, cutting me a deal at $200 a month to cut my grass. I mean,
yeah.
who's got that kind of money just throw at cutting your grass?
Well, any smart man would. Find you something.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I was a male prostitute for 20 years. That's another lie. But, I mean, what are you going to do to make that kind of extra money?
$200 a month?
Deuce Bigelow, male prostitute.
You could pick up pop cans and not have to cut your grass.
Oh, no. You haven't priced aluminum lately, have you?
I mean, you can do. I mean,
Dude,
make
I've went plastic. I used to drink, aluminum cans, and I'd turn in like 30 bags at the local. I get $30.
How many Pepsis you drink in a day?
That would be false well, it wouldn't be false advertising, but Pepsi doesn't deserve that kind of advertisement from me.
Okay.
But let's just say I keep them employed.
I've never seen you not drinking a Diet Pepsi ever in my life.
Well, I have a disorder. And clearly, I have a drinking problem. It's just not alcohol. But
Tell us about the Indian.
The motorcycle?
Yeah, that's your baby.
Oh, well, I'm part Indian, some Indian. My wife's Choctaw. My kids are Choctaw. I'm part Cherokee, Mohawk, and Irish Catholic. I don't know. I mean, of course, we're all mutts in America anyway. But I like motorcycles. I had one when I was young. Always want to have one. And in the 90s, late 90s, I saw my first Indian motorcycle. They quit making them in the 50s. And the Indian chief, and at that time, of course, I was a Native American partly and a police chief. And I thought, if I ever get another motorcycle, it's going to be an Indian chief. And 30 years later, I finally
beautiful bike.
Was finally able to buy a modern version. I was going to buy an older one, but I was afraid,
working on it.
It's 70 years old.
Don't get Chad started.
Who are you going to get to work on it? And I tear up everything mechanical. I mean, I'm just I could break a mallet.
Yeah,
with a rubber spoon. Yeah, and. So I bought this Indian, and then I had it custom painted with some Native American artwork on it and some custom leather work, and it's really, really a beautiful bike. But I ride it.
You do, yeah. You ride it. You get a lot of use out of it.
I don't ride it a lot, but I do ride it. And, I can only stand so much, but it's there's something to be said for wind therapy.
I just don't, whenever I had mine, I was in that for a while. Whenever I was into the motorcycles, the bikes had gotten so big and bulky. Like I had an electric glide.
Yeah.
And it was so big and bulky that you almost didn't really enjoy going down like a 2-lane back road in it.
Yeah.
So you kind of felt better just getting out on the highway and cruising. And I just hate highway driving.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I didn't have that problem with my Indian, but I like I would definitely enjoy
the back
like I'll tell you what. One of the nicest rides is 327. Going out past Londonderry, out
beautiful.
To
that big old valley out there.
I mean all
beautiful.
The Amish. It's just it's amazing. Or beautiful. 139 back in the back.
Our topography here.
Oh my!
We have some of the most beautiful riding. I went down to Florida last winter, and I took my bike down there to do some riding. And
not pretty.
No, I didn't. No, there was nothing about it that I really enjoyed.
My trip out west has made me have a whole new appreciation for where we live.
Oh, yeah.
It's not bad here.
No. It's
it could be worse.
Beautiful.
You could live in Missouri.
Yep.
Kansas.
Nebraska.
You could live there.
Yeah.
Wisconsin wasn't no peach.
Did you see that? Did you see that bird that flew over? Yeah, it was 42 miles away. I used a rangefinder on it. So, you're talking about that peacock.
Wyoming?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Wyoming's as dry as this table.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, Appalachia, I mean, we live in some of this is God's country.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
And people...
That's what I always see you doing. I always see you out enjoying that. I always, I see you. You're in the woods a lot. Right now you're bow hunting a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have friends that come. I don't get to do as much. I try to stay active as I can, but I have some pretty severe limitations that you can't see, internal stuff that's going on with me. But I wonder sometimes how it is that I'm still walking today and alive.
You're still training Bondo, aren't you?
I do what I can under my limitations. It's more like physical therapy than it is. There's no hardcore training anymore. Yeah. My joints can't take it. I don't have
teaching.
Yes, there's a big difference between. It's like people say, well, you're not injured. Well, I have no rotator cuff, and I got 7 screws in the shoulder, 8 screws in my neck, and there's certain things that I just can't do. But that doesn't mean I can't tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then watch you do it and say, Craig. So it's kind of like Woody Hayes, when he was coaching Ohio State. He was still teaching football. That doesn't mean he was playing football.
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference between coaching and teaching and playing. And same thing with martial arts. They think if you teach martial arts, you must be out there doing backflips and kicking people in the head every day, and it's just not the case. Just like, and you've learned that. Jason puts you through some drills, and he says, "Here's what I want you to do. Now, okay, do it for 30 seconds."
I wish it was that quick.
Well, yeah. So there's people are just the realities of what is versus what they think is. Yeah. Is just night and day sometimes.
So it seems like you've always been into these hobbies, though. I mean, Eddie sent me an article that you were you a 1,000-yard rusher?
Well, yeah, I had it. Yeah, more. I mean, I only played 9 games, but I averaged over 100 yards a game and 8 yards a carry my senior year, 8.5, something like that. And I think I had like 5.5 career as a running back. Which is probably another reason I don't walk straight. So,
and then you were on track. You ran track.
I ran track.
You guys made it to the regionals.
Yeah, sectionals and districts. I think a couple times. We had really good track teams. I was more quick than fast. I mean, I had really good quick. Like 40 times. Okay. But I kind of petered out about 80 yards.
Well, now you were also a power lifter, though, right?
I did. I was probably a better power lifter than I was a track athlete. And I was probably a better martial artist than I was a power lifter. And I was a lot better Frisbee thrower than I was any of the others. But I dabbled in a lot of different things, and had
awesome.
some success But
well,
boy,
I'll tell you, if there's one overriding theme of this is I take my hat off to you because you've tried tons of different things. We've gone and it seems as though you must have a hell of an internal drive because you're excellent at everything you try.
Well, I'm excellent at everything I stay with.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Trust me. Somebody asked a famous guy one time. He says, "What's it like to be famous overnight? Write a hit song." He goes, "Well, I was a failure for 40 years. Yeah. Like Einstein or Alexander Bell. I failed for 40 years before I succeeded." Everybody thinks that. Yeah, so it's about getting back up, and it's about having interest and abilities and being blessed by God to have the ability to do certain things, and determination.
Do you think that the mixed martial arts or the Bondo, do you think that has kind of helped maybe shape you to where, just like whenever you pick up a recurve bow and you're shooting aspirin out of the air, do you think it's taught you like a different, I don't want to say, you said that was from Japan?
Well, yeah, the Bondo is from.
Would you attribute that to maybe an increased focus?
Yeah.
Well,
you're not. I'm not saying you're different, but I mean, like you don't. I mean,
my psychologist would argue that.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
I mean, what's he know?
But you know what I'm saying, Chad? Like,
yeah.
You've been around some high caliber athletes.
Oh yeah.
And Is that you're obviously one of those guys?
Well, I mean, what I'm seeing is it's applying over a broad spectrum of different activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what it is.
Or is that genes?
Well, definitely, genes helps.
I mean, boys like that.
They're a lot smarter than me. They can do add and subtract and balance their checkbook, graduate college, and they're a little bit better than I was. So, but martial arts, I say, is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's if you study, just like having a 30-year military career, it's not just a career, it's a way of your life, and you live your life a certain way every day by a certain set of standards. I've never drank, I've never smoked, I've never used drugs. That's probably why I'm so messed up. But I mean,
I can attest. Whenever you used to stop in 601, you never had a beer.
No, I've never drank in my life. And people don't believe that, but it's true. But the reason was because of my childhood and the horrors of
but maybe
of what I saw.
You're given maybe that stuff. Do you think alcohol, like if you would, let's just say you were a random drinker, and you've been around a lot of drinkers.
There's nothing I don't do. There's one thing about me. Everything I do is out of control and stop. I got 2 speeds.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's either I don't get off the couch or I'm trying to go through a wall. And I was taught that at an early age by some older athletes that helped set my mindset and my drive. Part of my problem was, and I don't know if you can understand this or not, but my father was probably one of, if not the greatest running back ever come out of this area.
Okay.
And back in the 50s, and all I ever heard all my life, and I was pretty good at running back. It was like, you're pretty good, but you'll never be the back your dad was, It affected me so bad that I thought that, if I don't start as a sophomore, and if I ain't, I'm never going to amount to nothing in my life. I believe that.
And you weren't meaning that like against your dad.
No, it's just that
your mentality.
I felt like
You were chasing ghosts, man.
Yeah, I'm
were
like,
you like that? Because you had your parent. I mean,
but
your
my father never said a word about
That's
football.
what my dad never.
My dad never said anything.
No.
It was always everybody else. He didn't care if I played ball, and he had a full ride to Georgia. He played basically professional football in the military, and he was the most humble man I ever met, and I was kind of the complete opposite, which is I made a lot of enemies. I was really super cocky in my youth and talked too much, and I made a lot of mistakes that I regret now. But one of the reasons I did it was nobody ever give me a pat on the back. It was never, hey, you done a good job, or I'm proud of you.
you were constantly chasing approval.
It was constantly, that was pretty good, but your dad had, done this, and I think he figured it out as I got older. So that was part of my drive, for better or for worse, and like I said, I tried to do things, to better myself and be a better person, father, things like that. And, so I learned a lot that way. And like I said, I sucked at baseball, and I enjoyed playing Frisbee, and I worked at it a lot. I played a lot. I practiced a lot. Had a bow in my hand since I was old enough to pull a bow back. Loved archery. So my dad and my grandfather introduced me to that. And of course, I wanted to lift weights because I was a little guy and I wanted to be big enough to play college football, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, learn how to punt.
Yeah.
What do I got to punt for?
Yeah.
Well, that way your size doesn't matter. What do you mean my size?
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that stuff till I went to college, and I seen what,
Yeah.
the difference between a next level D1 athlete and little old Curt was, and that was about half a second of 40 and about 60 pounds.
8 inches.
Big difference.
Big difference.
So, and so then I started lifting weights to try and get some size, and just because I was tired of being that little old skinny pencil neck kid.
Yeah.
And I trained, and I've never really stopped training.
How old are you, Curt?
61.
61.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people think I'm a little bit younger, like 60.
Yeah, I didn't realize you was in your 60s. I didn't realize I would have guessed you early to mid 50s.
Yeah, most people think I'm 50,
Yeah.
or something like that. But You know,
hell, we're all getting older, man.
yeah. I mean, I cannot believe
Well,
this.
that's what I like
hate
the
to even
training,
admit that, but training and living a healthy lifestyle. But again, I've had all these joint injuries, and
I remember when 61 boys used to looking at, okay, where am I going to be buried?
Yeah, well,
My grandpa's, they both
69,
65.
69. My grandfather died,
And everybody at his...
And he looked. I got pictures of him at 69 years old, and he looks like 85, 90 years old.
Yeah.
So, but that was a different era, a different time, different medicine. You know, like I say, people take things for granted. You know, you can get a stent and extend your life 30 years. You know, in a two hour operation. So, you were looking at, you just dropped over dead. You know, so you know, I mean, we're lucky, but I focused on a lot of things. I am able to focus. You know, and I do have certain blessings with athletics and the ability to do some things, and I enjoy them. But I am not the best at anything. I'm pretty good at several things, but I mean, and I suck at a whole lot more. Yeah.
So tell me, how bad did Eddie Hughes suck as a fighter?
Oh God, so bad.
I figured, let's really bust these balls.
Let's finish with him.
I mean, he's short, he's ugly, he's got a pencil neck. He's unsuccessful. I hate him.
Yeah.
Did you ever just watch him just take a beating?
No, no. He was him and Gary Stearns.
I know Gary.
Him and Gary Stearns were best friends, and they come to train with me in the 90s. They were probably 12 years old. And they come down there, and, I trained them. And, Eddie had amazing flexibility, and Gary was pretty good, too. And so it got to the point where I let them spar, and they were like green belt material from day one. And I'm like, who'd you train with? Well, we've never trained.
Yeah.
I said, you're not... You've not taken martial arts from no. I said, well, how did you learn that? Ninja Turtles. So they watch Ninja Turtles, and they go out and they start emulating some of the things they've seen on these TVs. And that's what scares me about MMA, because these kids are watching some of this stuff that's going on, or same thing with WWE, and they'll go out with their friends and they'll try and pick somebody up and hit them with a chair or a table, think they're going to get back up, or shoot them with a gun, and
put them in
the bullets are going to bounce off.
Or a full Nelson
and then they
snap
put
her neck.
And so that's things get out of control, and people don't, people in positions to making money don't see the big picture, outside the box thinking. So these guys. Man, they could fight, from day one, but they had no control. I mean, they're just knocking the crap out of each other. So you've got to teach that from day one. It's one thing to throw a punch here really hard, really fast, and it's another to throw one right there and stop it really hard, really fast.
Yeah.
So that you don't get hurt, he don't get hurt, because if you knock your training partner's teeth out, or he's not there next week to train because he's at the dentist office.
Yeah.
So, you've got to.
You can't go at those like street fights.
No, absolutely not. And you can't train like that. Professional fighters, like the MMA guys, these guys, some of them have made it big. But the common person or athlete doesn't understand the gene pool on that thing. So Ali Frazier would fight boxing once a year, and they'd fight 12, 15 rounds.
15, yeah.
And they might fight once a year or once every 2 years, And you had top 10 heavyweight boxers. Okay, so you talk about how many weight divisions you have. 10? 8? Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about that for MMA. Now, when you're talking about boxing, boom, 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 just the hands. Then you start adding elbows, knees, kicks, wrestling, grappling, breaking. And you talk about 8 divisions, and then the top 10. That's 80 people in the world, 10 in each division. Now, you know how hard it is to make it in the NFL?
Yeah.
Okay, and how many people are playing football, going to college?
We kind of broke this down.
Yeah.
It's about one out of every 3 to 500. One out of every 3 to 500 kids around here, we figured, was going D1.
Yeah. So martial arts the same way. Good compared to who is Oh, I'm a black belt. Oh, you're a black belt, you know. Well, that's like saying I played high school football. I was, you know.
Yeah.
You know, oh, okay, you played 4 years. You played, yeah. Did you start? Oh, no, I didn't start, but I was a black belt. Okay, or did, you know. So, you know, same thing. Do you go to college? You know, how good a black belt were you? And you got different degrees, you know, D1, D3, D4.
Yeah.
you know,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you start talking about semi-pro, Canadian football, NFL, making the team. You know, are you in the practice squad? Or you make the team, you get in the game.
So
you're
many
all
levels.
I got to play with some, probably 8 guys played in the NFL in college, and one of them that was famous. I didn't play with him, but I know him, was Jack Delaplane, and he was Franco Harris's backup. And he played at Salem. He was an All-American, big man, great athlete. Played 8 years for the Pittsburgh Steelers when they were the Steel Curtain. He's got 3 Super Bowl rings, and he he scored a couple touchdowns, but he never really got to play much. Now, if he'd have went to any other team in the NFL, he'd have probably been All-Pro or big name.
Yeah.
But he stayed with the Steelers behind Franco Harrison and what was the other guy's name? I can't believe I can't remember him. Little white running back. Shoot. That's a shame. I'm
That's
sorry.
awful.
I apologize.
I'll have it here in a second.
But
Rocky Bleier.
Rocky Bleier.
Yeah.
You know, who got his foot shot off in Vietnam, and he played for Notre Dame. So this guy's their backup, and you don't hear about it, So there were other guys that played in the NFL that I met and things like that. But I mean, they're just one in a million. So you take the pro fighters and you compare that to NFL football players. There's hundreds of thousands of people playing, millions of people playing football. But that fight game is much, much, much smaller. They used to say that maybe like 1 in 1,000 people that walk into a martial arts school will ever get their black belt, like 1% or 3%.
Yeah.
And less than 1% of that 3% ever go to the second degree, because people think, I'm a black belt, I know all I got to know. And that happens a lot.
I'd say like 1 out of every 50,000 kids go to the NFL.
Yeah, so it's
just different sports.
So so the gene pool's smaller, and combat sports is a lot worse than playing football with pads.
Oh my.
Yeah. Your lifespan in that. Of course, the NFL, your lifespan is probably 3 years.
Yeah.
But same thing with the martial arts. You might make it before you're 30 years old. If you're over 30, then you got a lot of things going for you, and luck included. And then you're crippled up the rest of your life. And if you make $10 million. Most of these guys, like rappers, who make $10 million, are bankrupt inside of 3 years.
Yeah.
Most NFL football players who are millionaires are bankrupt within 3 years of the last game they played. Yeah. So financial stability, education, direction, decision making is everything. And a lot of people played the game. I met a guy the other day, played for the Green Bay Packers. I think he said he played for 8 different teams. He was from up around Columbus at DeSales, I think. No. Guy was like 6'8", big old dude. But he was just an old farm boy down here, I mean, But he did play.
Yep. Anything else?
No, man.
It's a good time to wrap up. Kurt, you're coming back.
Yep, we're coming back. We got to do it again.
We got to do it again.
That was a great time. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing.
Hit that like button. See you next week.
Like and subscribe.
See you.